Hello and welcome to this video. We put this video together because there have been numerous changes over the past 6 months, and we thought we'd like to clarify a very popular question that people do ask us on a day-to-day basis, which is, do I qualify for Australian permanent residency with my qualifications and my occupation? And we've updated it for 2018 to try and reflect the changes that have been put in place recently. So before we start, as usual, I have a disclaimer that although as registered migration agents, we can give you professional advice on Australian migration um, options. This video, however, is for general information purposes only. If you do not agree to this disclaimer, please stop watching the video now. So what are we going to cover today? A couple of things. We're going to talk a little bit about what Australian permanent residency is, because there's still some misconceptions on that and misunderstandings on that. We're going to talk about general requirements and limitations for skilled migration, which leads to permanent residency. We're going to talk about Australia's new skilled occupation list. These lists were updated as of March 2018, and so there are some changes in place. We're going to talk a little bit about the skilled points test, but I'm not going to dwell a lot on that. We're going to talk about the migration matrix, which is something we've put together. We use it internally and for our clients to somewhat determine a quick way to figure out how good your visa options are. And finally, we're going to discuss what to do next. So, firstly, about Australian permanent residency. The most popular question we have is, can you apply for an Australian permanent residency from overseas? And the simple answer is not just yes, but that most applications are done outside of Australia. Australia has about 190,000 applicants or new skilled migrants moving into Australia a year, mostly through the skilled migration program, but it is through other programs as well. And they're very occupation specific applications, such as migrating over as an engineer or an accountant or an IT and so on. You do not need a job offer to apply for permanent residency. And when your application is processed and approved, you immediately become a permanent or sometimes a provisional residency holder, depending on the visa subclass that you apply for. Another question is, what can you do with an Australian permanent residency? First is you can live and work anywhere in Australia indefinitely. So that means if you move to Australia and you never leave the country, you can live there forever. You can start a business, you can study at a lower cost than what international students usually pay. You can access Medicare, which is the public health care system. There are some social welfare benefits involved with that Australian permanent residents get immediately. The only things you can't really do are vote for a new government, and some of these social welfare benefits, such as unemployment benefits, you would not qualify for immediately. So some of the general requirements for applying for skilled migration from overseas are that you're over the age of 18 and under the age of 45 years old. And this is at the time of decision, meaning when the Australian government invites you to apply for the visa. Um, it used to be 50 years old as of before July 2017, but as of July 2017, they did reduce the upper limit for skilled migration to 45 years old. Your occupation must be on either of three skilled occupation lists. The third one, which is the regional occupation list, is actually a new list, and I'll discuss it more in a little bit later on. There are some English language requirements. Now, certain countries can bypass some of these requirements, but for points purposes, there is a target score that most people have to hit. And for total points purposes, for skilled migration, the skilled migration points test, a target of 60 points and above is what you are looking to get. Of course, the higher the points, the better, as they select higher points before lower points. You also need an invitation from the Department of Home Affairs, which is what the previous Department of Immigration and Border Protection has been renamed to. So as you apply for the visa, you submit all your documents, and the very last stage is ultimately the immigration department of the Department of Home Affairs must invite you for the visa. So let's talk a little bit about the skilled occupations lists. Now, skilled occupations list define all occupations allowed for the skilled migration purposes. Um, it's a quite a big list, and it has been come up with using statistics that show shortages in skilled labor in Australia over the next 2, 5, 10, 15 years, and so on. There are three separate lists. The first one is called the MLTSSL for short, medium and long term strategic skills list. Essentially, that's the higher demand occupation list, such as accountants, engineers, and certain IT professionals, architects, and so on. There's the short term skilled occupation list. So, this is slightly more general or slightly lower in demand occupations like marketing specialists, customer service representatives, and so on. And then there's a regional occupational list, which was set up only in March of 2018. So this list, although the occupations are defined on it, they are still working out some of the processes on which states will start selecting for those occupations. But primarily for the purposes of most of our clients, we'll be focusing on the two lists, the MLTSSL and the STSOL. There are over 400 occupations in total when you combine these lists. So there are lots of occupations to um, to look through. And if you're not familiar with the lists, one of the main questions is like how will I know if my occupation is something that Australia is looking to invite for visas at this time? So what we've done is we've come up with a kind of a rule of thumb, and it doesn't cover every single occupation, but it's quite a good rule of thumb considering most of the occupations in the region. So, for example, if you are a trades person, such as a qualified electrician or qualified woodworker and so on, if you're in engineering of any field or any form, if you're an accountant or a finance manager or an external auditor, if you are in a technical IT role, if you have a job such as an architect or working in primary health, such as nurses, such as qualified physiotherapists, such as qualified radiologists, and so on, or if your occupation seems very niche that might have a high demand in Australia, then probably you're on the MLTSSL, meaning that your occupation is higher in demand. If you have more of a general and support role type occupation, such as a marketing specialist or such as uh, like a ICT customer support individual or maybe an architectural drafts person type of role, then you're probably on the STSOL or the lower in demand list. The others could be on the regional list, or you may have an occupation which currently does not qualify you for skilled migration. So as I said, there are lots of occupations on these lists. And if you're not sure, please get yourself assessed by a migration consultant or one of our migration consultants um, to do a check for you, because for an individual to do it, sometimes there are just too many occupations. They won't understand which ones are which and how to select an occupation for yourself. Okay, but let's say you've highlighted that you're either on the MLTSSL or on the STSOL, then what do you do? Well, normally what we do for our clients is a skilled points test. Or not for our clients, but for people that we meet, we do a skilled points test and we add up the score to see what kind of score they have. But for the purposes of this video and to make things a bit easier, a full points test would just be a little bit too hard to conduct or try to show you on screen. So what we've come up with is we've developed a matrix which we've called the migration matrix, and it takes into account the factors that influence your point score the most. So first of all, you need to have an occupation on the primary lists, which are the MLTSSL and or the STSOL. Again, if you're not sure, please get in touch with a migration consultant. But after you have identified that you are, how do you kind of figure out your chances? So if you have a look at this migration matrix, what you'll notice is that we've primarily done it based on age in years. The left axis, the y-axis, is your age in years, and the x-axis, or the bottom axis, is your work experience in years. So you can see, for example, if you've got between 0 and 3 years and you're between the age of 18 and 25, you've got a yellow box. If you've got more between 5 and 8 years of work experience and you're still between the age of 18 and 25, you've got a green box and so on. Now you can see that some combinations get you the highest scores of in the 40s. So for example, if you're between the age of 25 to 33 and you've got anywhere from 5 to over 8 years of work experience, then which some people will have by that age, you'll see that your score is blue and you're in the 40s and 45s. Now, that doesn't mean that greens are any worse off or yellows are any worse off, because if you can see in the top right corner, I've indicated some bonus fields. That means that you can upgrade yourself from a green to a blue or yellow to a green if you A, study in Australia. That's another additional 5 points, so you just add 5 points to your score. So, for example, if we take the bottom left corner of somebody between the age of 18 and 25, let's say a fresh graduate, and they've got no work experience. So they'd be at 25 points, right? If you studied in Australia, that's an additional 5 points. So now you're already in the green. If you have superior English degree, you'll be pushed into the green, into the blue. So, take a look at this, do a quick mental score. So, for example, if you're between the age of 25 and 33 and you've already got 5 years or more of work experience, you're already at 40 points. If you've got a degree, that adds 15 points. So now you're at 55 points. If you have superior English, now superior English it's not a subjective how good is your English kind of term. It means that you have the ability to score above a band 8 for or equivalent in IELTS or PTE. Um, which is one of the highest scores that you can get, you get an additional reward of an additional 10 points, and so on. So, it's not a perfect point score, but it gives you a good indication. So anything in the blues, you've got the most visa options. Anything in the greens, you've still got good visa options open to you, which you may be able to improve based on your score. And anything in the yellows, you may need uh, to work on some of the bonus factors, such as either upskilling with a degree or having superior English, and so on. So have a look at this, do a quick mental calculation where you are, and kind of try and remember what zone you fall in, whether it's blue, green, or yellow. Okay? So moving on. So now that you know that your occupation is on one of the skilled occupation lists, and you've got your migration matrix score, let's do a quick qualification checklist to see what options you have. So, like I said, was your occupation on a skilled migration list? Yes, then you get a tick. Are you below the age limit? And that's important. And are you above the minimum age limit of 18? So, unfortunately, if you're 15 years old and looking at this, you still don't qualify. But are you between the age of 18 and 45? On the migration matrix, do you have a good color score? Like I said, I did describe what the scores represent, so um, uh, don't look too deep into this. But are you in the greens, the blues? Then you've got a good chance. The yellows, you might have some additional bonus factors to take into place. So if these three ticks are met, then congratulations, you may qualify for an Australian permanent residency from offshore. So as you can see, it's not as complicated as people think. Yes, we've simplified it for today's explanation, but you have more than one option to qualify, and a lot more occupations qualify than people expect. So what's next? What's next is you have to analyze your migration matrix color score. You need to calculate an accurate point score. You need to assess the various visa options that are open to you and for your occupation. you need to go through a simplified migration process so as to not be overwhelmed by information overload. You need to understand the fees involved and, of course, the processing timelines involved in the entire Australian migration visa process. So, what we invite you to do is book a free consultation with one of our consultants today, and they can go through that what's next checklist. So, again, if you have a good score between the ages of 18 and 45, your occupation in your head or in your mind is on one of those skilled migration lists, then I encourage you to go to our website, which is australmigrate.com/matrix, fill in your details, and one of our consultants will do a quick assessment based on the information provided and get back to you as soon as they can. So I hope you enjoyed that video today. If you have any questions, again, reach out to a consultant or leave a message or comment on our Facebook page or on our YouTube video, um, and we'll try and get back to you as soon as we can. All right, thank you, and you have a good day or good week ahead of you.